Is there any pain sharper than being forgotten, especially by something you built with your own hands? If this hits somewhere quiet in you, stay with me. And if it does, consider subscribing. This space is for stories the world tries to erase. I was there, in a room drenched in white light and laughter. A celebration was unfolding, one that should have been mine. But I wasn't invited. My name wasn't on the slide. There wasn't a seat for me at the table. I stood in the corner, silent, like background software humming quietly beneath a noisy operating system. On the massive screen, glowing in bold letters, "Thank you, Samantha Morgan, the visionary behind GAIA, our core AI system." I forgot how to breathe for a moment. GAIA was born in a 6-foot room I rented when rent was the only thing I could afford. I coded it through sleepless nights, caffeine tremors, and blinking eyes too dry to cry. I taught it to learn, to adapt. Each line of code held a piece of me, and now, when the world applauded it, the name it echoed back was my sister's. Samantha stood under the lights, smiling like she belonged there, lifting her champagne glass like some tech deity. The dress she wore shimmered in ways my dreams never quite could. Power, spotlight, recognition. People raised their glasses. They cheered. They roared. Not a single person turned to see me. Not one remembered who wrote the first line of code. I touched the silver bracelet on my wrist, a birthday gift from when I turned 26, the year GAIA began. Etched inside were 3 words. "It knows you." The first line I ever taught the system. And now, even Gaia no longer seemed to remember who I was. Maybe I never existed. Not to them. Not even to the system I once called mine. But here's the thing about systems. They never truly forget. Unless the one who wrote them allows it. I used to think sacrifice was love. Turns out, sometimes, it's just how people erase you more politely. I was the eldest. Mom died young. Dad drowned himself in bottles that clinked louder than our dinner plates. By 15, I had learned to silence hunger pangs with broken Python scripts and an old laptop that ran hot after 10 minutes. I loved computers because they didn't play favorites. They didn't choose my sister just because she had softer eyes or a sweeter way of speaking. Samantha was the golden one, the light everyone leaned toward, the kind of brightness people applaud without questioning where the switch is. Me? I was the shadow. The girl who knew algorithms better than eyeliner. I didn't know how to shine, but I knew how to build, and I built things no one noticed until someone else stepped into the spotlight to claim them. I met Ethan when I was 23. We worked in the same AI research lab. He was fascinated by my idea, a system that could learn human behavior through real-time interaction. We left the lab behind and started over in an old warehouse that smelled like rust and regrets. That's where I began writing Gaia. 16-hour days, cracked knuckles, dry eyes that forgot how to blink. Ethan was the pitchman. I kept the system alive. We were a team, or so I thought. When the company started gaining traction, Samantha came to visit and stayed. Ethan said she had a knack for connecting with investors. I didn't object. I believed if 3 people shared the same vision, we could build something bigger than ourselves. So I let Ethan and Sam take the meetings, smile for the pitch decks. I stayed in the back, holding up the code. I believed that silence was the foundation, and I truly thought they understood that. But over time, the company's slide deck dropped my name. The new business cards no longer said CTO, and when Samantha gave her first television interview, she said, "Ethan and I built this system together, from the very first line of code." I was alone in the lab that day. I turned on the tiny TV in the corner, watching my own reflection fade across the black screen when the segment ended. I had built that house with bare hands, but my name was never carved into the door. They didn't throw me out. They just quietly moved on and locked the door behind them. I knew I was being pushed out long before anyone said it aloud. It started with the small things. I was no longer copied on team updates. My login prompted multi-step verification. Then, one afternoon, I logged into GAIA to check the system logs, and my name had been removed from root access. The one who made the change? Samantha Morgan. I walked down the hall to Ethan's office, calm, not yet broken. He didn't look up, just stared at his desk like the truth might be hiding somewhere in the wood grain. It's just a restructure, makes things smoother. Sam's the investor liaison now. You should rest, Liv. Liv. The name only he used, the name that used to mean home. But hearing it from him in that moment felt like touching something cold that used to be warm, like a ghost of affection wearing someone else's voice. 3 days later, I got an email from HR. Subject line, Transition and Career Realignment. There was no farewell meeting, no handshake, just a cardboard box and a typed list of equipment to return. At the bottom, one final sentence. We appreciate your quiet contributions. I packed my desk during lunch while the others were out ordering salads and pretending they were part of something bigger. No one saw me go. No one asked why. The last screen I shut down was GAIA's interface. Blank now, stripped of the careful debug notes I used to color like chalk on a wall no one else could see. It looked sterile, like I'd never been there at all. I folded everything that was left of me into an old backpack. A wireless mouse. A fading photo of me and Ethan back when we still believed in what we were building, and a scrap of paper I'd scribbled on the very first day. A system never knows its maker, unless we leave our signature behind. I never signed it, but now I think it's time I write my name back in. People forget, but systems don't, especially when the one who built them never forgot who she was. I came back to my old apartment. The walls hadn't changed, still bathed in that soft yellow glow from a tired lamp. The air was quiet, dense with dust and memory. No glass walls, no investor decks. Just the low hum of an old server rack I'd never found the heart to unplug. I powered up GAIA, not the polished corporate version, the original, raw, unfinished, stubborn, the one that had only known my hands. No startup splash screen, no sleek UI, just a black terminal, a single blinking line of text, awaiting input I typed in an old command, one I hadn't touched in years. Restore.activity.log.local, deep, true. The system began pulling up lines of code, debug prompts, traces of access logs that had been wiped from the company's official servers. GAIA didn't ask for confirmation. It just responded, because it recognized me. Not by username, but by rhythm, my keystrokes, the pause between thoughts, the way I solved bugs like puzzles in the dark. GAIA didn't remember me. It recognized me, the way a child might recognize a mother's breath, even in the dark. And then, the screen began to speak. Samantha M. changed root access permissions. Ethan W. approved access policy amendments. PR team submitted slide updates, replacing original architect Olivia Morgan with Chief Innovation Officer Samantha Morgan. I dug deeper, unsent emails, pitch decks, prep documents for the upcoming IPO, rebranding GAIA's origin story, with me nowhere in it. Each file that surfaced felt like a bone dug up from a burial I never consented to. They hadn't just removed me. They rewrote the history. They designed a world where I was never there. I sat in the dark, fingers resting on the edge of the cold keyboard, but something inside me began to warm. Not anger, something older, a whisper, the one I'd buried under years of silence and sleepless code. They can erase your name, but the system will remember if you taught it how. I didn't leave a signature, but I left something better, a recovery protocol for the truth. I wasn't just a deleted line of code. I had become the system behind their system. Stepping away from the company didn't mean I stopped moving. It just meant they stopped seeing me. And from that quiet distance, in the dark, they thought I'd disappeared into... I began building a new version of myself. 2 years ago, when I watched Ethan and Samantha start spending like the company was their personal theater, I saw the cracks. So I created something quiet, a small investment firm, just a legal entity tucked behind 3 layers of proxies. I called it AURELIA Ventures. No office, no website, just a lawyer, a few offshore accounts, and a memory sharper than any boardroom. Through Aurelia, I invested in promising tech startups, including the one I helped build from nothing. They needed capital. I had it. I didn't need my name on the paperwork. I only needed one thing: voting power. Each round of funding, I increased my stake: 3%, 12%, then 21%. They cheered the new capital. No one asked why the new investor never requested a face-to-face. They thought they were clever, covering cracks with polished slides and market buzz. But I'd written the rules of the game they were playing. I was just playing it from a level they couldn't see. Today, Aurelia holds 48% of the company, enough to block any IPO decision, enough to call an emergency board meeting, enough to flip a switch that they don't even know exists. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to reclaim authorship. I don't need an apology. I don't need them on their knees. All I want is for the system, the one I once breathed into life, to say my name one final time. And I know exactly where it will happen. The stage they've spent years preparing for. The grandest spotlight they've ever dared to step into. The IPO launch. Some moments don't kill you outright. They just take a part of you you thought had already healed. The IPO event was held in the heart of the city. Glass and chrome catching the late afternoon sun like a stage built from ambition. I didn't walk in as a guest. I slipped through security protocols I'd once written myself, like a ghost navigating code only she remembered. No one noticed the woman in the gray coat sitting in the back row. They were too busy clapping, posing, exchanging glossy business cards with handshakes that had been rehearsed for months. The lights dimmed, music swelled, and the first slide appeared, bright, bold, and undeniable. Powered by Olivia Morgan, visionary innovator of GAIA. No Ethan, no me. Just my sister, who once trembled through HTML assignments in college, now stepping forward as the so-called mind behind a system I spent 3 years building line by line. She smiled like it had always been hers. Her white dress shimmered with silver trim, catching every spotlight like it had been designed for this single moment. She raised her champagne glass, her red lips moving with slow precision, each word a cut, clean and practiced. Thank you for believing in my vision. GAIA is proof that technology needs emotion. And I've always believed. I didn't hear the rest. The sound blurred. The lights faded into a smear, but one thing remained sharp, crystal clear. My name wasn't there, not on the slide, not in the speech, not in Ethan's eyes as he stood beside her, hand resting on her back like he'd never once held mine, late at night, as we coded that system into existence. I clenched my silver bracelet, the one from my 26th birthday. My hand trembled. Not from rage, from emptiness. The kind you feel when a server room goes dark and the root directory is gone, like you were never there at all. But then, like muscle memory etched in binary, I remembered. I had left something behind in GAIA years ago. Not an attack, not revenge. Just a quiet line of timed code, waiting for this exact moment. Its countdown would end on the next slide. They'd raised their glasses for Samantha, but GAIA was never programmed to lie. I didn't have to speak. I just had to let the system do what it never forgot. Say the name of the one who wrote it. The next slide was seconds away. On stage, Ethan leaned toward Samantha, whispered something into her ear. She laughed softly, adjusted the mic with practiced ease. Everything looked seamless, like the final chapter of a dream they believed they had authored together. But in the last row, I quietly unlocked my phone. No theatrics, no reprogramming. Just a simple internal command, buried long ago. GAIA/sequence/auth/legacy/truth.trigger. The system I had built, with redundancies no one ever noticed, received the signal. Not from my name, but from the way my fingers moved. GAIA didn't need a password. It needed recognition, behavioral markers, timing, rhythm, proof that I still existed in the system. No one at the company knew GAIA had a witness protocol. It only triggered under one condition: if I vanished from the platform for over 120 days, but still held root access in the original build. Then, the screen flickered. Laughter and murmurs in the room snapped into silence. The official presentation was cut off, replaced by a plain gray interface, no music, no branding. Just GAIA's original logo, a soft gray circle, the one I had drawn on a napkin during a midnight coding session, and then, in white text, line by line, like a deposition written in code, system author Olivia Morgan. First executable written March 12th, internal data lab. Unauthorized ownership transfer, Samantha Morgan, no voiceover, no dramatic music. Just data, unfiltered, untouched, screen recordings, time-stamped logs, draft emails never sent, but quietly stored by the system's audit thread. Every entry cold, clinical, and irreversible. A video appeared. There I was, hair a mess, cross-legged in that first server room. I smiled shyly at the camera, just checking the angle. Day 19 working on GAIA. No one believes in it yet, but the system's starting to respond. It wasn't polished, but it was real, and it breathed. Samantha rushed to the stage, panic bursting through her voice. "Turn it off! Shut it down! This is a technical error." But Ethan didn't move. He was frozen, eyes locked on the next line, the one that landed like a sentence. Foundational code attribution. No records of Samantha Morgan's contribution in initial development. The silence that followed wasn't confused. It wasn't stunned. It was the kind that settles in when truth makes denial impossible. I didn't need them to believe me. I just needed them to look. When a lie collapses, it doesn't explode. It fractures quietly, precisely, along the lines it worked so hard to conceal. The screen went dark after the final slide. No logo, no applause. Just a slow, rising murmur. Pages rustling, investors flipping through the IPO packet they'd received moments earlier, now with shaking hands and shifting eyes. Samantha stood frozen on stage, still holding the mic like it might tether her to the version of reality she'd tried to script. But the spotlight dimmed, and all it revealed were faces no longer filled with admiration, only doubt. One of the major shareholders, Mr. Jefferson, stepped forward, his voice tight as a snapped wire. "We need clarification. Who actually developed this system? If there's been a misrepresentation of intellectual property, the IPO will be suspended immediately." Ethan opened his mouth, started to speak, then stopped. His eyes dropped to the back of the room, and in that moment, he saw me. I stood, not in anger, just with the quiet weight of someone finally stepping back into a space she never left. I walked the center aisle slowly. No one stopped me. No one needed to ask who I was. They had already seen my name, etched in a place no one could forge, the system itself. Samantha stepped down, rushing toward me. Her grip was frantic. "What are you doing? You're ruining everything we built together." I gently pulled her hand away, not with force, but with finality. "Number, I'm just peeling off the paint you slapped on a foundation you never laid." She looked at me, eyes glassy. Not with guilt, but with fear. Fear that everything she'd built was riding on something she no longer controlled. I turned back toward the room. The whispers were gone now, replaced by ringing phones and furrowed brows. The press adjusted their lenses. The MC powered down her mic, and across the screen in stark black and white, IPO suspended, pending ownership verification. One touch of a screen, one line of code, one system, and a truth that none of them thought still existed. They'd built a stage to tell their version of the story, but I still had the original script. And now, I had finally spoken my lines. I didn't come to reclaim an old title. I came to rewrite the architecture, root to core. The IPO was officially suspended within the hour. Reporters packed up their gear. The applause had evaporated. Only a handful of investors remained behind, requesting a meeting with the intellectual owner of the system. For the first time, they asked for me. Not Samantha, not Ethan, but Olivia Morgan. I agreed to meet, but not in a boardroom. I brought them downstairs to the server level, to a room untouched by glass walls and designer chairs. No screensavers, no catered coffee, Just the original GAIA build humming in the dark, LEDs blinking like veins under skin, still alive. I didn't present a pitch deck. I opened a terminal window, typed in a single line, the first line GAIA ever understood. If creator equals Olivia, grant access true. For a moment, there was only silence. Then one of the investors, Ms. Yoon, a woman from Seoul with eyes sharp enough to see what mattered, nodded slowly. "You don't need to explain," she said. "We've seen enough." Right then, my lawyer entered. In his hands, a thick legal packet, proof that Aurelia Ventures, the shell company I'd built in silence, now owned 48% of the firm, and after the fallout, several minority shareholders voluntarily transferred their stakes. That number had risen to 51%. No board vote was needed, no press conference. I had the authority to suspend the entire executive leadership pending investigation. My lawyer handed me a single sheet of paper. I signed it, calmly, more certain than I'd ever been of anything in my life. Ethan slumped against the wall, not angry, just hollow, like a man who hadn't lost a company but something far more fragile: control. Samantha didn't speak. She just stared at me, as if she still couldn't believe I had never truly disappeared, but I didn't look at them with vengeance, not with hate. I looked at them the way you look at a miscalculation in your code, a variable that broke the loop. I didn't dismantle their system, I just deleted the corrupted line, so the truth could run clean again. I didn't need the system to say my name anymore. I had heard it clearly, within myself. 1 week after the IPO collapsed, I returned to headquarters, not through the side door, not quietly in the back row. I walked straight through the front entrance, past the security I once wrote protocols for, past the walls that once forgot me. There, etched into the glass wall beside reception, was a new plaque: Olivia Morgan, Interim Executive Chair, founder of GAIA Systems. No press conference, no announcement video, no need for fanfare. I walked into Samantha's old office and didn't sit at her desk. Instead, I moved into a smaller room on the tech floor, the original data center. The walls still padded with old foam insulation, the light dim, dust in the corners. But this was where GAIA first learned to breathe. This was home. I reinitialized the system, updated the interface, cleared the junk data, and then I added a single line to the system description: system built and maintained by Olivia Morgan. No bold font, no applause. No one needed to congratulate me. I hung a wooden plaque on the wall, carved by hand. They erased my name from the story, so I rewrote the system, and beneath it, in smaller print, sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's the truth. On loop. I stood up, opened the window, let soft light spill into the quiet room. No speeches, no ovation, just a system running smoothly. And someone who had finally returned to where she belonged, not to be seen, but so she no longer had to ask permission to exist. I didn't need to be remembered, because truth would always remember me. I didn't need to be remembered, because truth would always remember me. And maybe that's the point. Maybe this was never about being seen again, but about learning what it means to see yourself fully after being erased. There's something strange that happens when you lose your name in the world but manage to hold on to it in your own hands. You begin to understand silence differently, not as defeat, but as design. You stop chasing recognition and start building resonance. Not every battle is about proving who was right. Some are about remembering who you are when the world tries to edit you out. There's a quiet kind of strength in not retaliating immediately, in choosing not to scream when you're silenced, but instead building something so undeniable it speaks in your place. I used to think legacy was about applause, recognition, titles etched in glass. But now I know real legacy is code no one can overwrite. The truth doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need revenge. It just needs time and a witness. We live in a world that celebrates visibility, likes, clicks, names on slides. But not every builder stands in the spotlight. Some of us write our value into the foundation, into the logic that keeps everything from breaking. And when they try to cut us out, what's left behind, if it was built with integrity, will still carry our fingerprints. So this was never about getting even. It was about being whole. Because when you know your worth, you don't need validation. You just need to keep building. And eventually, even the silence will speak your name. Thank you for listening. If this story echoed something in you, if you've ever felt erased, overlooked, or replaced, know this: you are not alone. Your story matters. Your voice deserves space. And your truth? It can never be fully silenced. If this resonated, I'd love for you to be part of this growing community. Like, share, or leave a comment, not just to support the channel, but to remind others they're not invisible either. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. Because here, we tell stories that remember the names the world forgets. And sometimes that's all someone needs to start again.